Hey, comrades. Hope everyone's doing well. We're hitting up Conflict, which is the 8th chapter, the main story of Nikke, Goddess of Victory. So this is a pretty short and sweet section in that it does some good kind of like establishment of some character dynamics and some relationship issues that have payoffs in later chapters. So the whole crew, we're up on the surface as we were going to go to this factory thing, and Shifty's there, and she's like our operator, and she explains this whole situation where she had to apply to be like our personal operator because we're like a special forces squad now, and that there weren't that many people wanted to do it because we're going to be operating a lot, but she likes us, and she clearly has some sort of friendship with Ain's like off mission, which comes up in this section as well. So she was definitely down to like be hanging out. And so Shifty and Ain's, or they chit chat a little bit, and then Ain's gets kind of funny about like, oh, now we have 2 spies in our party because Shifty's spying for like big government, and then Neon's spying for Ingrid, the Ellison CEO. And Neon's like, what do you mean, me? And it's like, yeah, you. And she's like, oh yeah, I am a spy for Ingrid, and she kind of laughs it off because it's like a big joke to her. It's like, whatever, doesn't matter. And then Ainz just talks about how great it is that they can just like go to the surface and have a good time. And then Shifty's like, all right, so I didn't get briefed, obviously, because everything you do is like black ops. So what's the mission here? And Ainz is like, oh no, we're just chilling. And you got to remember, like, Rappy does not say anything, right? And this happened a while ago, so in case you forgot, because she really wasn't that involved with this kind of like storyline during the last couple of chapters where we were dealing with like Snow White, Modernia, and Chatterbox, and Unlimited. But Rappy supposedly had her mind wiped, right? And so Shifty isn't in on the gag, essentially. So then Rappy doesn't say anything because she's supposed to be like a new Nikke who doesn't like have a personality necessarily or have like thoughts. So Ainz is kind of taking the role of like the female protagonist during this section of this chapter, at least. And so she's explaining to Shifty, like, oh no, we just decided to come up here and like get, stretch our legs and wander around a little bit. And we're about to head in. And Shifty's like, oh, so you guys are done with the mission? It's like, yeah, we're just gonna head over the elevator and go home. And Shifty's like, oh, okay, do you mind if I hop off early? I want to go catch an episode of Arc Ranger. And Arc Ranger is this show that it's like a Power Rangers style kind of like superhero show that a lot of the Nikkes like are big fans of. And Ainz is like, oh wow, there's an episode. Do you mind recording it for me so I can watch it later? And Shifty's like, you bet, buddy. But she's like, awesome, I'm super excited about that. And then Neon's about to say something, and Shifty gives her like a look. Or not Shifty, Ainz gives her a look. And at that point, Shifty's like, all right, logging off, see you guys. And she logs off, and then Neon's about to speak again, and Ainz is like waves her off and like points at this building. So, So we head inside the structure, and the reason Ainz wanted to come in here is because the structure blocks off communications. So then Ainz starts discussing that she has concerns about Shifty, that we don't know where Shifty's loyalties lie, and that there's a lot of talk about us in the arc, and that we just don't know who to trust and who not to trust, and that something we're doing is kind of like super sketchy, like going to get the bullet from this factory that is the same bullet as the one Snow White showed us before, or gave to us. And so we don't want to tell anyone. And then Neon gets kind of says, Ainz, you're being like real paranoid about like who to trust and who not trust. And then they get into like a fight about that. Discuss your concern. Okay. And then all of a sudden Exia like comes in with like a text on the blah 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 app, and it's like, hey, you guys, you can trust Shifty, she's fine. And then Ainz is like, holy shit, I thought this was blocked off from communication. And then Exia makes her like hacker comment like, well, all walls can be breached if you're good enough and I'm good enough. And then, okay, so why can we trust Shifty? Oh, because she's a Final Quest player, and she's not the final quest of the game. Or Fantasy Quest. It's like Fantasy Quest, I think is what the game's called in the game. And so they go back and forth about that a little bit in the text, and then Exia is like, and they're like, well, I don't know if we can trust you either. And Exia's like, whatever, you can trust me, you'll be fine. And then Neon is kind of being quiet about this whole situation, but the next day is like, all right, well, anyway, you guys need to head north from here and find a destroyed plane. And so we head out to do that. Once we get to the plane, after killing some raptors, the crew is like, all right, well, what do we do now? It's like, well, I don't know, Exia is supposed to contact us to tell us like the next move to get to this factory, so let's just kind of like set up a guard detail in case any raptors come by. And at this point, Neon and Ainz like really start bickering and arguing about like trust and like how she's a spy, and then Neon's getting like real offended or whatever. And then Exia texts in, and she's like, hey, do you think you should interfere with this whole thing? And we're like, nah, it'll be fine. at that point, Nikke is like, hey, Rappy, since they're doing whatever, will you go open that box over there? And so Rappy opens the box, and there's nothing in there. And then they're like, what is the deal with this? Like, why? And then Nikke is like, all right, that's good. You guys can keep heading north. And then Ainz and Rappy are both like, ... like, what? And so we keep heading north, and then Exia contacts us with like a video chat. It's like, why would you send us a video chat? It's like super complicated and much more like difficult than just doing texting. And Exia is like, well, I don't even like video chatting, but I have to do this because it's more secure, because I know you guys are lying, and I wish you wouldn't lie to me. And Ainz is like, what are you talking about? We're not lying to you. You know everything about this. And she's like, no, you're lying. And like, then it goes to like Rappy, and Rappy's like, I don't understand. And she's like, I know you were. And then Exia makes some comment. She's like, so that the memory wipe is really working out for you, huh? And then it's like everyone's quiet for a second, and she's like, so anyway, that box I had you open, that's actually an old style box that had a malfunction that when you opened it, it would explode. And there's no database on it. It was never recorded as a thing. It was just a thing they stopped doing, and they kind of buried the record and didn't talk about it at all. But there is one way to open these kind of boxes that would not set off the explosive, and that's like tilt it to the left, like a 20-degree angle. And Rappy literally did that when she opened the box, so she didn't cause an explosion. And the only reason she knew to do that was because previously she had opened a similar box by the same style of box, and it had blown her up. And so the only way she would know about that is if it already happened. And then we kind of like, no, I mean, maybe she just like remembered this thing, and she's like, no, you guys you got to stop. And so. And then at that point, Rappy's like, okay, fair. Yeah, I don't have memory wipe. And then the next day starts talking shit about Ainz. She's like, and you gotta start trusting. You're not even trusting your own comrades. Like, that's ridiculous. Like, you're being so paranoid that you can't trust anybody, even the people that you should trust the most. And then she kind of finishes up, be like, so you can trust me because, and like, why can't we trust you? It's like, hey, I literally called you on the secure message. Nothing's being recorded. Or I'm going to destroy the recording immediately afterwards. And if I really, like, I knew Rappy didn't get a memory wipe, so if I really wanted to fuck you guys over, I would have just sent this information to central government, and you guys would be done. And I didn't. So you need to cut it out. And it's like, okay, that's fair. So we agree to be more honest with Exia and to continue forward. So she leads us forward. As the little time goes by, everyone's on edge. And Neon is super mad at Ainz still, and like not wanting to talk to her, and so Ainz is still being like super paranoid about everybody and like who to trust and who not to trust and whatnot. At that point, Rappy's like, "Hey, you two need to stop fighting, so we can be a team and do this thing." And so the Neon just like storms off, and then Ainz storms off, and then Exia pops in with her text, and she's like, and both of them are like, "Hey, you got to go do something about this." And we're like, "No, we just need to let that. They need to figure this shit out. Like, this is between the two of them. They need to come to terms. Like, I can't be solving these problems for them." And then Rappy's like, "Well, that could cause some problems. Like, people could get hurt." And he's like, and then we comment that like, "Well, that's just the way it's got to be. Like, if they can't figure it out, like, we're gonna be in trouble in the future anyway. So like, I can't just be ordering them to like stop fighting." We continue onward after killing some more raptures, obviously, and then we get to a minefield, and Exia is very like, oh man, because the alpha particle concentration is like so high that she can't examine where the mines are at for us to be able to get through. And so then we're talking about like other ways to get around. There's like no other way to get around, and like we could just like stumble through the minefield, but that would most likely end up in us as the commander getting killed. And so there's a lot of problems. And then it's like, well, we could put a request in to the central government, but if you did something, and then all of a sudden Shifty pops in, and she initiates like an alpha particle disbursement through the central government, like through the proper channels. And then Ainz is like, the fuck are you doing here? And then as soon as that goes through, Exia's like detects all the mines and sends us the map so we can get through the minefield without any issues. And then Ainz is still like, hey Shifty, what are you doing here? And Shifty's like, well, I was worried about you guys. I watched Arc Ranger, and it was a great episode, and we found out like the Red Ranger's son is the son of the Doctor. And I didn't record the episode, Ainz, I'm sorry. And then Ainz is like, what the fuck? Why'd you spoil it for me? And she's like, well, it was hinted at like in season 5 or some bullshit, and they have like an argument about that. But then they end up coming to terms and being like, you know what, you're my friend, and I'm sorry I didn't trust you, and I should be able to trust you. And Shifty's like, yeah, I'm sorry for whatever crazy reason. I didn't record your show or some bullshit. But I'm definitely not a spy. I'm here for you guys, and I would never betray my friends like that. And so then they kind of make up, and they're like, all right, we're great. And Neon is like super pissed. And Rappy says something about like, Neon, you got the tool for like the thing? And Neon doesn't even respond. She just like gets up and walks across the room to like go take care of what she should take care of. And then Ainz is like, ... So there's still some very like tense things going on between the two of them, obviously. And part of it's got to be because Neon, saw Ainz like quickly overcome her like prejudices towards Shifty, but her and Neon are still like not apologizing to each other or doing anything. So we keep heading to the factory, and as we get a little bit closer, we see the factory, and there's like a giant old cannon right in front of the place, and it's like an old missileless design. And Rappy and Xe are like, holy shit, it's this thing, this can do this much damage and all this stuff. And then they both, Shifty and Xe, who are now double operating with us and doing a great job, talk about how like we got to stand in the line of fire because the line of fire is going to cause this much damage and it could devastate us. And the Raptures are there, and in fact there's 2 Lord Raptures right by it by the entrance to the factory, and if they activate it, like we're going to be in a lot of trouble. So that means Rappy's like, all right, so we'll go around where the cannon can't hit us, and we'll hit these Lord Raptures and beat the shit out of them. So we fight, and we win, obviously. And so but at that point, the cannon starts to go off anyway, and then both Neon and Ainz are like, oh shit, and so they both leap in the air and crash right into each other, and they both collapse right in the path of destruction. And it's like, ruh-roh, and then the cannon goes off, and that is the end of Ainz and Neon. But just kidding. It's because the cannon goes off, and there's like a giant white light, and then the cannon doesn't go off because it didn't have enough juice or whatever, so nothing happened. So then and it was dead. So then we have Neon and Ainz just like laying there, and then Neon gets up, and she like offers a hand to Ainz and starts to pick Ainz up, and then she's like, you know what? No, fuck it. And she like drops her hand, which causes Ainz to fall back down. And then she goes on like this epic rant about how like Ainz should trust her, and that yeah, she's a spy for Ingrid, but she's never done anything to harm Ainz or Rappy or the commander, and that she's been with us in like all these combat zones and doing all this dangerous shit, and that she's always been in the fight, and if she was really just going to spy on them and not care about them, she would have just let us like fight on our own, and she wouldn't have helped out at all and all this stuff. It's pretty good. And then she storms off, and then Ainz and Rappy are like, oh man, like, we have not been treating Neon correctly, clearly. And Ainz is like, after that situation, Ainz stands up and she's like, you think she's okay now? And then Rappy is like, ... probably. Of course she's not. Anyway, so that wraps up chapter 8. Yep, like I said, it was short. Just a lot of like kind of character development with Shifty and Ainz and everything, and then and it was good. It was fun. Nothing new and exciting necessarily, but some good character development and some movement forward in the story. So go ahead, like, share, subscribe, comment, and we'll pick up the main story in a couple weeks. And next week, this Friday, we'll get into, I'm probably going to do Cafe Sweetie, because they really don't show up in the main story. They do for like a second. So just kind of get them out of the way, and then do Bow Wow Paradise, I think is what it's called, which is where we're getting introduced to Biscuit, one of my favorite characters, to be completely honest. All right, cool. So go ahead, like, share, subscribe, comment, and I'll catch you guys later. Bye.